So, data about our preferences and behavior is the new gold. We are entering a data-driven area where everyone needs to embrace AI for operational efficiency and to deeper client relationships. So clients expect customized, personalized recommendations and services. And if you don't live up to these expectations, you will quick lose relevance. We see there's an increasing divide between leaders and laggers. So AI, as you know, creates enormous values for individuals, society, and organizations. Yet, there are risks. The technology is galloping, and the profits could sometimes be seductive. Yet both the risks and the values of AI is hard to capture. And then they are unequally distributed. My name is Felländer, and I am thrilled to be here today to speak about AI sustainability, meaning embracing AI by identifying, measuring, and governing how AI is scaling in a broader ethical and societal context, about avoiding unintended pitfalls. So AI is nothing new, yet we're at the stage right now when mature technologies cross-fertilize. So we can store, process data cheaper, but most importantly, the vast amount of input data for the algorithm to work on is becoming exponential through sensors, face, voice, speak. So we ask AI to make subjective decisions on imperfect information. How does that sound for you? Yet, now we have this combined vast data sets that makes the algorithm learn to become an extended and augmented human brain. So again, as an economist, we look at digital or technological paradigm shift through general purpose technology. And general purpose technology is defining what characterize the digital or technological paradigm shift by 3 waves with the same generic underlying technology. So the first wave, there's a low maturity of the technology. And in the second wave, there's a widespread use. And in the third wave, there's a cross-fertilization both between sectors and the different technical solutions. So if we look at digitalization from a general purpose technology perspective, we've already seen how the first wave, the IT boom and crash, with a lot of visible productivity gains through to the hardware development. Now, the second wave, and I would say that we are on the verge of entering the third wave. So the second wave has been characterized by being extremely consumer-driven, disruptive value chains, price models, and competitive situations. Yet, most importantly, it has shifted power to the consumers by transparency, by trust between peers, by slashed middle hands being replaced by validation on the social platform. These values are not captured in the official statistics. So economists wonder, what is the gain of digitalization? What is this all about when there's no productivity increase in the statistics? There are different, I spend a lot of time on this, but to be short on it, it's about both measurement due to pricing models, but it's also the value creation of a consumer surplus. So if you think about what your banking app gives you, it's leisure time, right? And that's positive, it's a consumer surplus that is not available in the official statistics. I'm not going to linger on that because what's important now is to take the step and describe the third wave of digitalization. This is when I said that the cross-fertilization of mature technologies. This is where the risks are not captured. This is where the transparency is shifted or might be shifted into a black box phenomena. And why is this? Well, there's two sides of the AI coin. The engineering side, but the other side is the humanistics. How AI is scaling in society. So there's a lot of investments that has been put into the engineering side. And some critics argue that artificial intelligence is an experiment that we don't bother to look at the results on society. So we should not ask, what can AI do? We should ask, what should AI do? And also, humans should lead AI and not the other way around. So artificial intelligence is different. It's different because it's self-learning, it's self-propagating, and it's self-scaling. And since a lot of resources have been invested in the tech side of the AI coin, there hasn't been enough exploration and research on how it's scaling, and thus our need for explainability and transparency and accountability. So algorithms are often targeted towards goals such as profits, increased sales, or clicks, or deepening client relationships or engagement. And the algorithm will do what you tell it to do. But along the way, it can take decisions with an ethical dimension that is hard to capture. So if you put artificial intelligence into a traditional business model, you push down costs, reduce all spill in your value chain, enormous cost efficiency, and you increase revenues by locking in your clients and creating a lot of value in your personalized recommendations. So we never had to ask between efficiency and moral. We say that technology is good, and we put it in to make processes efficient and to make clients happy. But what if there's a split between efficiency and moral and we cannot capture it? What comes out of this extremely on-speed business model with AI is a new type of negative externality, a new type of pollution that we have not yet incorporated for. Compare this to when you have the large industrial organization polluting. And in the beginning, they had a lot of high margins because they were first. And then the regulatory framework and the sanctions begin to adopt for this. I will get back to the regulatory blind spot, but we are not even far from doing it right yet. All organizations need to be responsible for their clients' data and how it is used and what kind of impact that has on society. You can no longer say, we didn't know. So we need to demystify the black cloud of new type of pollutions. So my research team has done this and categorized the unintended negative pitfalls into 4 categories. So let me walk you through these. First, we have the misuse or overuse of data. So even though you are GDPR compliant, artificial intelligence can create intelligence that could be privacy intrusive for you. So one of our researchers has done work on the integrity paradox. What we say and claim to ourselves and our surrounding is our integrity is not the same as the footprint, our digital footprints. And let's think about why that is so. Lack of understanding or low moral. So there's actually an exchange between giving away our integrity for achieving convenient services, time optimization, and efficiency. But let's take an example. Let's take Amazon as an example. They're really early movers, and they've really gained a fast monopoly situation. First, they recommend you services and stuff, right? They work with the last mile, and they give you a lot of conveniency. So what you give away by this universe they've created for you it's pretty worth it for you. It's convenient and it's pretty. It's actually a good exchange of integrity and convenience. Yet when you bring in Alexa in your room, it's suddenly, maybe without knowledge, a shift and an imbalance between the exchange. So this is the time of pollution when there's so much integrity that is polluted into Amazon or third parties to capitalize on. The bias of the creator, the second pitfalls, it's when the programmer intentionally or unintentionally programs his or her values. And to be honest, and not judging, the average programmer is not aware of how the algorithm or the application is scaling in a broader context. So let me give you an example of a famous American coffee house chain that worked with artificial intelligence in marketing for upsales. So the goal here was really to increase sales. And of course, this was very effective because along the day with these patterns and preferences, you really were getting what you wanted before you even knew that you wanted it. So the marketing team was really successful. So in the youngest cohort, it actually did upsells up to 6,000 calories. So the algorithm had learned along the way that the margins on sugar were so much higher than on coffee. So it pushed a lot of sugars in the young cohorts. What is a sustainable sugar consumption and who's responsible? The third category, immature AI. It's when the data is not structured enough, or you don't have sufficient or enough data, or when you haven't trained your algorithm enough. What about face recognition? Discriminating Asians by asking them to open their eyes, or working worse on dark-skinned women. We need a threshold for go-to-market when it comes to AI applications, right? The fourth category, this data machine bias, is the most well-known and most studied, when the data is not reflecting the reality or the preferred reality. But who's to say? So for example, in an HR AI application, the AI learns that the word execution in a CV is working really fine to define what a successful CEO is. But that is prolonging old prejudices on gender and leadership into the future. These are the pollutions. This is the discrimination, the privacy intrusion, the misinterpretations, the social exclusion, and the segregation that is a new type of negative externality. An algorithm is actually built upon using your vulnerabilities. By nudging in your weak spot into buying something or deciding something. It's tilting you into the preferred road in the future. But when does this have an ethical implication, and what is a profitable or profitable-driven company's responsibility in this? As I said, the regulatory framework is lagging. So if we see the regulatory pendulum hitting too fast by these pollutions, it will hamper innovation and productivity. And yet there are so many different stakes in different sectors. For example, in the financial sector, it's extremely sensitive data, such as in health, whereas in retail it might be not so. So we have to identify the different stakes. If the regulatory pendulum doesn't strike at all, we will have a lot of mistrust towards both the technology and the institutions using it. So when it comes to lagging regulations, it's a lot of EU, for example, and World Economic Forum have initiated AI ethics standards, and so has the large giants such as Google and Microsoft. These are our AI principles. They're mostly about transparency, explainability, and being fair. But how do you sustain that in your organizations? How do you make sure that what you say you do is actually coded in your AI applications? So with the lagging regulatory framework, organizations need to stand accountable for the ethical agenda. I would say that both consumers and citizens are going to demand transparency and explainability in order to exchange their integrity. So there is a trade-off between explainability and transparency and the reliability of the outcome in the AI model. So if you want to be super good, you can't explain it. So you have to be a bit slower and less efficient. But there's no trade-off between being transparent, proactive, and accountable towards your clients, because trust is key here. So what you need to do is you need to put the ethical questions on top of the agenda and really be precise. Because you have to code what is a sustainable credit consumption. You have to decide on how much integrity you tend to use. Or if you want to back off and say, we do not use demographic data. We're not interested in your zip codes, because we would probably not serve you the first if we knew where you lived. So there's a lot of ethical questions that could be uncomfortable because you have to say stop. So this is what we work with our organizations in the AI Sustainability Center. We have this sustainability lens with a technical, legal, societal, and ethical perspective. Our goal is to help our partner organizations to sustain their ethical values into the AI application and how it's scaled, to avoid unintended pitfalls, to make them ready for upcoming standards and regulation, and to make them competitive by being trustworthy and proactive. We use this. The goal is to have them all AI sustainable. We work towards decreasing the pitfalls by controlling for our fundamentals. So we scan the whole world for these principles and find that we believe that accountability, transparency, explainability, and governance is crucial to score high on. So the framework has different phases. The first phase is to do the risk scanning and see how is your AI sustainability risk profile. And then you get an indication of risk area indication. Where in your organization are you weak? And then we go along with a risk heap mapping and a gap analysis. You say you're this, but this is where you are. I don't want to point fingers, but I think the gap analysis of those organizations that has been too early in stating they're going to be so fair and explainable, it might be a gap here. So we do a gap analysis and then we come up with risk recommendations how we mitigate these gaps. So society is increasingly worried about AI and the implications for human beings. So today's business profits are consolidated into a few, but with the cost of the integrity of many. So the seductive gains and revenues and the pollution coming out from that needs to be incorporated into the business model to create trust. So it is time for us to identify new way to tangle or handle these risks, and it's time to change the business model. Thank you. You now, with Michael coming up on stage.
Thank you very much. for those words of wisdom. I appreciate it very much. In fact, we started the conference with on the topic of unknown unknowns. We have lived in a world where a lot of new risks, operational risks, has been introduced. Cyber, you mentioned it in your presentation. And now we hear new terms: privacy erosion, data pollution, the ethical agenda. Are we seeing new unknown risks emerging, and how do you see that? What do you think those kind of risks will be?
So first of all, these risks will be in referring to AI. And why I'm saying that is because it's not right now the blockchain or virtual reality. The artificial intelligence, let me do a historical contemplation. So as an economist, again, we always look at technological paradigm shift. We always look at what is it that has drastically reduced costs. Mm-hmm. And looking historically, it's been that drastically reduced cost of production, and then transportation, and then information flow and exchange. And now it's drastically reduced cost on making predictions. That's AI, and that's why the unknown will be in the AI area, because the risks are, the gains are exponential, so is the risks. Right. So, but what's interesting, I was working at the Ministry of Finance in Sweden prior to the IT crash, Lehman Brothers financial crisis, and we all, as well-trained economists, looked at we did the programming right, we did all the forecasting tools, and we couldn't see it. We couldn't see it. And then when it all emerged, I started working, coordinating at the Prime Minister's office, risk management coordination unit, and then the risk area with the financial and economic perspective hadn't been applied. So it's always, the risk management had always been about when there was a hurricane or something. So what is so important is both to have training or cross-functional teams and looking and moving over silos in an organization.
I appreciate that. So in the industrial age, we saw all the benefits in the beginning, and we didn't see the cost. We didn't see the impact on the environment. And when we reached that point, we realized we have to change our ways. We started to get into the sustainable period of the industrialization. AI, we see all the benefits. We are leveraging them at full. When do you think we're going to reach a tipping point when we understand the cost of AI enough, the ethics that we have to give up? When will that be balanced? How do we reach sustainability?
We're very soon. I guess you all read Taleb's book on the black swan. He recently published another book called Skin in the Game that says that if it's not affecting, you take larger risks if you don't have a skin in the game of what comes out. And I think here we realize at this moment that we are all an experiment for this, and we can all be we can be a victim of discrimination or faulty recommendation. So I think we're at the tipping point now, and the actors that are first mover within their industry is going to gain a lot of trust. And what is trust? That's your clients giving away the new type of currency, their integrity. So in the best area, there could be a really perfect line of level of explainability, so I understand it, and transparency in the way that everything can't be transparent, because you're going to game against it, and you can have a society where you don't want to end up. So there's a lot of fine-tuning in regulations and standards here, but we really, you cannot wait for, I mean, EU, for example, has their AI standards, and you cannot wait. No one is going to tell you how you're going to be transparent, and for your client, what is transparency? So it's really up to the organizations to be proactive and responsible in this area.
Awesome. So if the next big unknown is AI, and the opportunity to be the first mover on the ethics agenda is to gain trust for every consumer and make the world as we know it, a better place. What are the 3 things we need to do to be the first ones to make it there?
Well, I suggest to be joining the center's movement and be part of our multidisciplinary research and be part of the multi-stakeholder engagement, so you get the voice of the human rights perspective and public agencies, because we need to work together on this. And then I would suggest to do a first risk scanning, to just see and analyze, where am I at in my organization? Where do we stand right now? Where are our vulnerabilities, both in our non-technical and in our technical parts of the solution of the organizations? And then the third part would be to start thinking about translating your values and ethical principles into the AI world and say, this is our AI ethical principles. But before that, make sure that you can guarantee and ensure that they are sustained. So what we're doing, we're giving an insurance. We're not saying you will always be ethical because you worked with us. We're saying you're taking those steps. Right. You've done this in a systematic way, and this is our risk mitigation plan, and this is how we say in our towards our stakeholders and in our environments towards our clients, this is how we want to do this right. We want to be on the good side of embracing AI, meaning that the deep learning, like the really cool stuff you can do with AI, you might want to slow it down some.
Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
No, and just stating, because we work with companies that are so good and smart, and the ones that are successful say, well, we choose not to do that. Right. We can, but we choose not to.
Now this is fantastic. We started the conference hearing from Jim Quigley about the unknown. AI is a big risk that we're all facing. It's also a major opportunity. I think what Quigley taught us was that it's about gaining knowledge about the new emerging risks. Anna has helped us do so. In fact, she's inviting you to join the movement that's backed very strongly by the Nordic governments, but also the EU government, and I know several of the universities, leading universities on this topic right here in the US. And MetricStream certainly will partner up to then help with the risk assessment, and we are proud to be a partner and part of this ethics movement. So thank you very much, Anna, for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.